My brother had no idea what he'd just done. As security escorted me out with my belongings in a cardboard box, Derek sat behind our grandfather's desk, probably thinking he'd finally eliminated his biggest obstacle. What he didn't know was that 3 days earlier, I'd made a decision that would change everything. But he'd find out soon enough. Let me tell you how the kid who used to break my toys and blame it on the dog ended up desperately calling me, begging for help to save the family business he'd just destroyed. "You're not corporate material, Marcus," Derek had said that Tuesday morning, not even looking up from his laptop while HR packed my office into cardboard boxes. It was 7 a.m., and Golden Bytes headquarters was practically empty, except for the security guard awkwardly watching me clear out 12 years of my life. My name is Marcus Rivera, 38 years old, and up until 15 minutes ago, I was vice president of operations for Golden Byte, the regional fast food chain my grandfather started with a single burger stand in Phoenix back in 1987. For 12 years, I'd helped build this company from 12 locations to 47 restaurants across Arizona and New Mexico. I knew every manager, every supplier, every health inspector in our territory. I'd never missed a quarterly target, never had a store fail inspection, never caused corporate headaches. Derek, my younger brother by 3 years, sat behind what used to be Grandpa Miguel's oak desk. 3 days into being the new company president, and he'd already redecorated. Gone were the family photos and the framed newspaper clipping from our first franchise award. In their place sat a sleek monitor displaying real-time profit margins and efficiency metrics. "The industry's changing, Marcus," he continued, finally glancing at me with those cold eyes that reminded me nothing of the kid who used to help me count register receipts after school. "Grandpa's handshake deals and your people-first approach don't scale. We need systems, not relationships. Data, not feelings." I didn't argue. What was the point? I just watched as Janet from HR, a woman whose daughter got her first job at our Scottsdale location because I put in a good word, awkwardly sealed up the box containing my MBA diploma and the Manager of the Year plaques I'd earned 5 times running. 2 months severance, Derek added, still typing. Standard corporate transition package. Standard corporate transition, for family, for blood. For the business our grandfather built flipping burgers 16 hours a day until his hands cracked and bled. I took the box from Janet, who couldn't meet my eyes, and walked toward the elevator. As the doors closed, I saw Derek through his glass office already interviewing my replacement, some consultant in a $1,000 suit gesturing at charts I couldn't make out from this distance. In the parking garage, I set the box on my truck's tailgate and pulled out my phone. One unread message was waiting for me, a message that would change everything. But Derek didn't need to know that yet. I smiled for the first time that morning. My brother had always underestimated me. Today, that would finally cost him. 4 days earlier, I'd signed the most important contract of my career, and Derek had no idea it existed. Southwest Food Distribution was the largest food service supplier in our region, the company that delivered everything from burger patties to napkins to nearly every restaurant chain in Arizona, New Mexico, and Southern California. They controlled the supply chain for over 200 fast food locations, including all 47 Golden Byte restaurants. The offer came directly from Luis Hernandez, their CEO, after years of working together. I'd built Golden Byte's reputation as their most reliable partner, always paid on time, never rejected shipments over minor issues, treated their drivers with respect when other chains screamed about late deliveries. "Marcus, we're expanding our executive team," Luis had said over lunch at a steakhouse downtown, away from any Golden Byte locations. "We need someone who understands operations from the restaurant side, someone who knows how to maintain relationships while hitting numbers." The paperwork was being processed through their legal department right now, Vice President of Client Relations, Southwest Food Distribution. I'd oversee all major restaurant accounts across 3 states, with Golden Byte being the largest account in my portfolio. Derek didn't know. Nobody at Golden Byte knew. Grandpa Miguel was visiting family in Guadalajara, completely unreachable for another week. I pulled out of the headquarters parking lot, glancing back at the building that housed our original corporate office. Through the windows, I could see Derek already deep in conversation with his replacement candidate, probably explaining his vision for optimizing operational efficiency and eliminating redundant personnel costs. Derek caught my eye through the glass and gave a dismissive little wave, the same gesture he'd used since we were kids when he wanted me to go away. I waved back, pleasant as could be. I wondered how long it would take him to realize what was coming. A week, maybe 2 at most, before he'd need to place the monthly food orders. Then he'd discover exactly what not corporate material really costs when you're dealing with someone who now controls your entire supply chain. Grandpa Miguel used to say, "In business, loyalty flows both ways, mijo. Treat people right and they remember. Treat them wrong." He'd just shake his head and let the lesson finish itself. Golden Bite started in 1987 when Grandpa Miguel arrived from Sonora with nothing but calloused hands and a dream. He bought a failing burger stand on McDowell Road with his life savings, $8,000 and a handshake loan from his neighbor. Grandma Rosa worked the register while he flipped patties 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. I joined straight out of Arizona State with a business degree and big ideas about expansion. Derek went to culinary school in California, then got his MBA from USC. "I'm going to revolutionize the industry," he'd say during holiday dinners. "Fast casual is the future, not this mom-and-pop stuff." But Derek and I were different from the start. I learned the business from the ground up, worked every position from fry cook to shift manager, understood food costs, labor scheduling, health regulations. Derek jumped straight into corporate planning, full of theories about market penetration and brand optimization. "Customers aren't family, Marcus," he'd tell me during strategy meetings. "They're revenue streams. The moment you start treating business like charity, you lose your competitive edge." But that wasn't how Grandpa built Golden Bite. We had customers who'd been coming since the 90s. When Mrs. Chen's husband died, we catered his memorial for free. When the Ramirez family lost their house in a fire, our Tempe location organized a fundraiser. These weren't marketing strategies. They were who we were. Grandpa never took sides between us. "Different approaches for different challenges," he'd say, trying to keep peace. But I saw the tension building, especially after Derek hired outside consultants to analyze our operational inefficiencies. The first real crack appeared last Christmas when Grandpa mentioned succession planning. He was 78, and the long hours were wearing him down. I expected him to propose a partnership between Derek and me, co-presidents sharing responsibilities. Instead, he said, "Derek has some innovative ideas about modernization and scaling." Derek smirked at me across Grandma's dining table while she served tres leches cake, completely oblivious to the corporate coup happening over dessert. That cold feeling settled in my stomach, the same sensation I'd had as a kid when Derek would break my toys, then convince our parents it was an accident. In February, Grandpa signed the transition papers. Derek would become president in June, with full operational control. I'd remain as VP of operations. To provide stability during the transition, the documents read. The changes started immediately. My office moved from the executive floor to a smaller space near accounting. Key supplier relationships were consolidated under presidential oversight. Derek explained it as streamlining communication channels, but I recognized it for what it was, cutting me out of the decision-making process. Then last month, something interesting happened. Representatives from Pinnacle Restaurant Group came to our headquarters, one of those massive corporate chains that swallows up regional brands. They were scouting acquisition targets, looking for undervalued family businesses with growth potential. Derek took the meeting alone. I only knew about it because Maria, our receptionist, mentioned it casually. "Those suits were here for 3 hours," she said. Derek seemed real excited afterward. That evening, I stayed late and happened to walk past Derek's office. His door was cracked open, and I could hear him on a conference call. "The margins are there," he was saying. "Once we eliminate the operational bloat and modernize the supply chain, Golden Bite could easily support 80 to 100 locations. My brother's approach works for a mom-and-pop shop, but it doesn't scale." He laughed, that same dismissive sound he'd made since childhood. "Marcus is fine for maintaining status quo, but he's stuck in our grandfather's era. Too sentimental, too focused on community relationships instead of profit optimization. Once the transition is complete and I have full control, we'll restructure everything." I stood frozen in the hallway, contract papers from Southwest Food Distribution in my hand. Papers I'd been planning to discuss with Derek to see if we could work together on improving our supply chain relationships. 12 years. Every weekend, every holiday rush, every crisis I'd helped navigate. The time I drove to Tucson at 2 a.m. because our manager had food poisoning and we couldn't find coverage. The relationships I'd built with health inspectors, suppliers, employees' families. Derek was just waiting for the right moment to push me out entirely, probably to make Golden Bite more attractive to corporate buyers. I walked back to my office without making a sound, sat down at my desk, and signed the Southwest Food Distribution contract. Then I scanned it and emailed it directly to Luis. "I'm in," I wrote. "When can I start?" Luis called me within minutes of receiving the signed contract. "Welcome to Southwest, Marcus. I knew you'd make the right choice." His voice carried genuine warmth, something I hadn't heard in a corporate conversation for months. "When do you need me to start?" I asked. "Give yourself 2 weeks to transition out of Golden Bite professionally." "But Marcus," he paused, "there's something you should know about your family's account." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "Derek contacted us 3 weeks ago. He's been shopping around for cheaper suppliers, threatening to move Golden Bite's entire food service contract to Mega Supply Corp unless we cut our prices by 20%. Mega Supply, Southwest's biggest competitor, known for rock-bottom prices and food quality to match. They supplied the kind of places that gave people food poisoning and made the news for health code violations. "He wouldn't," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew he would. It fit perfectly with everything else. Cut costs, boost short-term profits, make the books look amazing for potential buyers. "We've been Golden Bite's supplier since your grandfather's second location," Luis continued. 25 years of partnership. Your family has never missed a payment, never rejected quality products over minor issues. But Derek told our sales team that legacy relationships don't matter anymore." I felt sick. Grandpa had built those relationships over decades. Southwest didn't just deliver food. They helped us navigate supply shortages during COVID, worked with us on payment terms during slow months, treated our emergency orders as priority even when bigger chains were screaming. "What did you tell him?" "We told him we'd consider it and get back to him. That was before we knew you'd be joining our team, of course." The irony was almost perfect. Derek was trying to destroy the very relationship that had just become my new career. "So what happens now?" "Now you get trained on our client management systems," Luis said. "And in 2 weeks, when Derek calls demanding those price cuts, he'll discover that Golden Bite's account has been transferred to a new client relations executive. Someone who understands the value of long-term partnerships." I stared out my office window at the Golden Bite logo, painted on the side of our corporate building. The same cheerful yellow and red that Grandpa had chosen because it reminded him of sunrises in Sonora. "Luis, I need you to understand something. This isn't about revenge." "I know, Marcus. It's about doing business the right way." My first week at Southwest Food Distribution was a masterclass in supply chain management I never could have gotten at Golden Bite. Luis assigned me a corner office with windows overlooking the distribution center, where trucks loaded with fresh produce and frozen goods moved in choreographed efficiency. "Your territory covers 247 restaurant locations," Luis explained, pointing to a wall map dotted with colored pins. "Each color represents a different client tier. Red pins are our premium accounts. They get priority delivery, premium products, dedicated customer service. Golden Bite's 47 locations were marked with bright red pins, the largest cluster on the entire map. Your job is to maintain relationships, resolve conflicts, and identify growth opportunities," Luis continued. "But Marcus, you also have complete discretion over service levels, delivery schedules, and pricing within our margin guidelines." I spent the week learning Southwest's ordering system, meeting drivers and warehouse managers, understanding how food moved from farm to restaurant. It was fascinating work, like seeing the circulatory system of the entire regional food industry. My phone stayed quiet. No calls from Golden Bite, no crisis management, no Derek demanding explanations for problems I used to solve. Instead, I worked normal hours, ate lunch without interruption, and went home with energy left for my own life. On Thursday afternoon, my phone finally rang. Golden Bite's main number. "Marcus Rivera speaking." "Marcus, thank God." It was Carmen, their operations manager. Her voice was strained. "We've got a major problem with this week's food delivery. Half our burger patties came in frozen solid, the lettuce is wilted, and 3 locations are completely out of fries." I leaned back in my ergonomic office chair, looking out at Southwest's perfectly organized loading dock. "That sounds like a supplier issue, Carmen." "That's why I'm calling. Derek tried handling it himself, but Southwest's customer service keeps transferring him around. Since you always managed our food orders." "I don't work there anymore, Carmen." A pause. "I know, but our customers are complaining. The Glendale location had to close early yesterday because they literally ran out of food to serve." I felt genuine sympathy, not for Derek, but for Carmen and the restaurant managers dealing with the chaos. Good people trying to serve customers with substandard ingredients and unreliable deliveries. "Have Derek call Southwest's customer service line," I said professionally. "I'm sure they'll get it sorted out." 2 hours later, Derek called my cell phone directly. "Marcus, what the hell is going on with our food supplier?" Derek's voice had an edge I'd never heard before, panic masked as anger. I let the question hang for a moment, enjoying the role reversal. For once, Derek needed something from me. "I wouldn't know," I said calmly. "I don't work for Golden Bite anymore, remember? You said I wasn't corporate material." "Cut the crap. Southwest says there's been some kind of account transfer, and they won't discuss our issues with me directly. They keep saying I need to go through our assigned client relations executive." I almost smiled. Luis had restructured the account exactly as promised. "Who's your assigned executive?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out. They won't tell me anything except that someone new is handling our territory. This is insane. We've been their client for over 20 years. 25 years, I corrected. Since Grandpa's second location." Derek's breathing changed, and I could picture him pacing his office the way he always did when frustrated. "Look, I know you're upset about the transition, but this affects the whole company. Employees, customers, everyone. Can you just make a call and straighten this out?" The audacity was breathtaking. Fire me, then expect me to solve his problems. "Derek, I think there might be some confusion here." "What kind of confusion?" "I'm not upset about any transition. I'm actually doing great. Just started a new position this week. Vice President of Client Relations at Southwest Food Distribution." The line went completely silent. I could hear the air conditioning humming in his office through the phone. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about my new job. Southwest handles client relationships for restaurant accounts across Arizona, New Mexico, and Southern California. All 247 locations in our territory get personalized service from dedicated account executives." Another long silence as the implications sank in. "You're our account executive?" "I'm your account executive," I confirmed. "And Derek, I have to tell you, your account has been flagged for some serious issues that need immediate attention." "What issues?" His voice was smaller now, the corporate confidence evaporating. "Well, according to our records, Golden Bite's management recently threatened to terminate their contract with Southwest unless we agreed to unsustainable price cuts. That kind of threat triggers an automatic account review process." I could hear him swallow. "How long does that review take?" "For most clients? Could be weeks, maybe months. Depends on a lot of factors. Payment history, relationship quality, future growth potential." "Marcus." His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious about my job responsibilities, Derek. But there's something else you should probably know." I paused, letting the tension build the way he used to do during our staff meetings when he'd drop bombshells about operational restructuring. "What now?" "Luis Hernandez, our CEO, shared some interesting information about Golden Bite's recent supplier shopping. Apparently you've been in negotiations with Mega Supply Corp." Derek's sharp intake of breath told me everything. We were exploring options. "Options to replace Southwest entirely," I continued. "According to our sales team's notes, you told them that legacy relationships don't matter anymore, and that Golden Bite needed suppliers who understood modern business practices." The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Derek's attempt to cut ties with Southwest had directly led to me controlling his entire food supply chain. Luis found that particularly interesting, I added. Since Southwest has never missed a delivery deadline for Golden Bite, never shipped substandard products, and worked with your grandfather through every challenge for 25 years. We even extended payment terms during COVID when half our restaurant clients were struggling. Marcus, look, maybe I was hasty. The thing is, Derek, Southwest values loyalty. We believe in long-term partnerships built on mutual respect. So when a client tells us they're actively shopping our competitors while demanding we slash our prices, I let that hang in the air. What does that mean for our account? I glanced at my computer screen, where Derek's file showed a series of red flags. Management transition, unstable, price shopping, high risk, relationship quality, deteriorated. It means Southwest needs to reassess whether Golden Bite aligns with our company values. We work with restaurant partners who appreciate quality service and fair pricing. We don't compete in the bargain basement market that Mega Supply serves. Derek's voice cracked slightly. How long will this reassessment take? Hard to say. Could be quick if the right executive made a compelling case for maintaining the partnership. Could take months if we determine that Golden Bite has fundamentally changed its approach to vendor relationships. And you're that executive? I'm that executive. The line went quiet except for Derek's breathing. Finally he spoke, his voice barely audible. What do you want, Marcus? For the first time in this conversation, I heard something that sounded like the brother I used to know, scared, uncertain, asking for help instead of demanding compliance. I want you to remember what Grandpa taught us about treating people right, I said softly. I want you to understand that business isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. And Derek, I want you to think very carefully about what kind of legacy you're building. I didn't hear from Derek for 3 days. During that time, Golden Bite's problems escalated exactly as I'd predicted. Carmen called twice more, not to complain, but to ask if I knew anyone at Southwest who might expedite their service issues. I wish I could help, I told her honestly, but these things have to go through proper channels. What I didn't tell Carmen was that I'd been monitoring Golden Bite's account status closely. Derek had submitted multiple service requests, each more desperate than the last. His messages to Southwest's customer service department had evolved from demanding immediate action to pleading for basic communication. On Wednesday morning, Luis knocked on my office door. Your brother's been calling our main line every few hours, he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. Yesterday he tried to go around you entirely, demanded to speak with my supervisor. What did you tell him? That account escalations need to come through the assigned client relations executive. You. Luis grinned. He was not happy. I stared out my window at the distribution center, where trucks were loading for the morning delivery routes. Golden Bite's usual order sat on the loading dock, but it would stay there until their account status was resolved. Luis, there's something I need to tell you about Golden Bite's situation. His expression grew serious. Go ahead. Derek wasn't just planning to switch suppliers. He's been in talks with corporate acquisition groups. I think he's positioning Golden Bite for a sale to one of the big chains. Luis sat back, processing this information. That explains the pressure for price cuts. Make the margins look better for potential buyers. Exactly. And once a corporate chain takes over, they'll definitely switch to the cheapest suppliers available. Southwest loses the account either way. So what are you thinking? I'd been wrestling with this question for days. The easy path was revenge. Let Derek's inventory problems escalate until Golden Bite's reputation suffered irreparable damage. Watch him fail publicly, dramatically, in a way that would validate every doubt I'd ever had about his approach to business. But that would also destroy what Grandpa built, the employees who depended on Golden Bite for their livelihoods, the customers who'd been coming to our locations for decades, the legacy of a man who'd worked himself to exhaustion building something meaningful. I'm thinking, I said slowly, that maybe there's a third option. Luis raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. What if Derek isn't the right person to own Golden Bite, but the company itself is worth saving? You want to buy him out? I want to present him with a choice. Run the business the way Grandpa intended, respecting the relationships and values that built it, or sell his stake to someone who will. Luis nodded thoughtfully. And you have a buyer in mind? Me, with Southwest's backing, if you're interested in diversifying into restaurant ownership. It was a bold proposition. Southwest Food Distribution partnering with me to acquire Golden Bite, creating a vertically integrated operation that controlled both supply chain and retail operations. That's actually brilliant, Louise said. We've been looking for opportunities to expand beyond pure distribution, and having you run Golden Bite would guarantee Southwest maintains that account long term. My phone rang. Derek's number. Perfect timing, I said to Louise, then answered the call. Marcus Rivera. We need to talk. Derek's voice was hollow, defeated. Can you meet me somewhere? Away from both our offices? I suggested Rosita's Cafe on Central Avenue, neutral territory where Grandpa used to take Derek and me for menudo on Sunday mornings when we were kids. Derek was already there when I arrived, hunched over a cup of coffee at a corner table, looking older than his 35 years. You look terrible, I said, sliding into the booth across from him. 3 locations ran out of food yesterday, he said without looking up. The Chandler restaurant had to close for lunch rush because they literally had nothing to serve except fountain drinks and apple pies. I felt a pang of genuine sympathy. Not for Derek, but for the employees and customers caught in the middle of our conflict. The health inspector showed up at our Mesa location this morning, Derek continued. Found expired lettuce in the walk-in cooler because our fresh produce delivery never came. We got written up for the first time in company history. Grandpa would have been devastated. In 35 years of operation, Golden Bite had maintained a spotless record with health departments across both states. Derek, I called Grandpa, he interrupted, finally meeting my eyes. Told him about the supply problems, said you were sabotaging the company out of spite. My chest tightened. What did he say? Derek's laugh was bitter, hollow. He asked why Southwest would have any reason to treat us badly, said they'd been nothing but professional for 25 years. So I told him the truth, that I'd been shopping for cheaper suppliers, that I'd threatened to break our contract with them. Derek rubbed his face with both hands. Grandpa went quiet for a long time. Then he asked me why I thought it was smart to threaten our most important vendor relationship right after firing the one person who'd spent over a decade building those partnerships. The weight of understanding was written all over Derek's face. He'd finally connected the dots. He knows you're working for Southwest now, Derek said. Knows that my decision to fire you put our entire supply chain at risk. What else did he say? That he's flying back from Mexico tomorrow, wants to meet with both of us. Derek looked up at me with something I hadn't seen in his eyes for years, genuine fear. Marcus, he sounded disappointed, not angry, disappointed, which is somehow worse. I knew exactly what Derek meant. Grandpa's anger was quick and hot like a summer thunderstorm, intense but brief. His disappointment was different. It settled deep and stayed there, a quiet sadness that made you feel like you'd broken something precious that could never be fully repaired. What do you want from me, Derek? I want you to fix this. Call Southwest, get our deliveries back on schedule, make this all go away. The same Derek who'd fired me was now begging me to save him from the consequences of his own choices. And then what? I solve your problems. You go back to running Golden Bite your way, cutting costs and treating employees like overhead expenses. Derek stared at his coffee cup. I don't know. I can't lose this, Marcus. It's all I have. For the first time in months, I heard something real in my brother's voice. Not corporate arrogance or calculated manipulation, but genuine fear of losing the thing he'd worked so hard to control. There might be a way forward, I said carefully, but it would require some major changes. Derek looked up with desperate hope. What kind of changes? I pulled out a folder I'd prepared the night before. Financial projections, partnership proposals, and a detailed analysis of Golden Bite's current position versus its potential under different management approaches. Southwest is interested in expanding beyond pure food distribution, I began. We're looking at strategic partnerships with restaurant chains that share our values around quality and customer service. Derek flipped through the papers, his business school training helping him process the numbers quickly. These projections, they're higher than our current performance, because they're based on Golden Bite operating the way it was designed to operate. Premium ingredients, consistent quality, employee retention, customer loyalty, all the things you've been trying to eliminate as inefficiencies. But the margins are better when you factor in long-term customer value and reduce turnover costs. Derek, you've been optimizing for quarterly profits while ignoring sustainability. He studied the partnership proposal. Southwest wants to buy into Golden Bite. Southwest wants to partner with Golden Bite, but only if it's run by someone who understands the company's core values. I met his eyes. That someone isn't you, Derek, and we both know it. Derek set the papers down, the fight going out of him. So you want me to sell out? I want you to choose what matters more, owning something you're destroying or preserving something Grandpa built. And if I say no? I pulled out my phone and showed him Southwest's internal memo about Golden Bite's account status. Then your supply problems continue until either you find another supplier willing to work with a client who threatens to break contracts, or Golden Bite's reputation gets so damaged that those corporate buyers lose interest. Derek read the memo twice, his face growing paler with each line. How long do I have? Grandpa lands tomorrow at 2 p.m. He wants to meet at 4 p.m. in his office. I closed the folder and slid it across the table. That gives you 18 hours to decide what kind of legacy you want to leave. Derek stared at the folder like it contained his death sentence. In a way it did. The death of his vision for Golden Bite, his dreams of corporate success, his plan to prove he was smarter than the old-fashioned approaches that had built the company. If I agree to this, he said quietly, what happens to me? You get enough money to start fresh somewhere else. Clean slate, no family drama, no pressure to live up to Grandpa's expectations. You can build whatever kind of business you want, run it however you think is best. Derek nodded slowly. And you get everything you've always wanted. I get the chance to preserve what Grandpa built, whether that's everything I've always wanted. I shrugged. I guess we'll find out. We sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of 35 years of family history settling between us like dust after an earthquake. Finally, Derek reached for a pen. 6 months later, I stood in the renovated Golden Bite headquarters, watching Grandpa Miguel train our newest assistant manager, a young woman from our Tucson location who'd shown exceptional leadership during the transition period. The walls displayed photos again, not just family pictures, but images of employees, community events, and the loyal customers who'd made Golden Bite more than just another fast food chain. The corporate efficiency metrics were gone, replaced by customer satisfaction scores and employee retention charts that told a better story about our real success. The numbers look good, mijo, Grandpa said, reviewing our quarterly report. His health had improved dramatically since stepping back from day-to-day operations, though he still came in 3 days a week to share stories and mentor new employees. Golden Bite was thriving under the Southwest Food Distribution Partnership. We'd opened 2 new locations, upgraded our kitchen equipment, and implemented employee profit-sharing programs that had reduced turnover by 60%. Our customer satisfaction scores were the highest in company history. Any word from Derek? Grandpa asked, though we both knew the answer. He's doing well in Denver, I said. Opened a food truck specializing in fusion cuisine. His Instagram posts make it look pretty successful. Derek had taken the buyout money and moved to Colorado, where he could build something entirely his own without the weight of family expectations. Our last conversation had been surprisingly cordial. He'd called to congratulate me on the company's turnaround and to admit that Golden Bite was better off in my hands. He was never meant for this kind of business, Grandpa said with a sad smile. Too much of his grandmother's ambition, not enough of her patience. Luis from Southwest stopped by that afternoon, as he did every few weeks to check on our partnership's progress. The integration is exceeding all our projections, he reported. Other restaurant chains are asking about similar arrangements. Just remember, I told him, relationships first, numbers second. The moment we flip that priority, we become just another corporate chain. As the sun set over Phoenix, painting the sky the same orange and red as our company logo, I walked through our original location where it all began. The same corner booth where Grandpa used to count register receipts, the same kitchen where he'd perfected our signature burger recipe through thousands of hours of trial and error. Carmen, now our regional operations manager, was training a new shift supervisor. "Remember," she was saying, "every customer who walks through that door is someone's grandmother, someone's kid coming home from school. Treat them like family, and they'll treat us the same way." It was exactly what Grandpa had taught me, what he'd tried to teach Derek, what would hopefully guide Golden Bite for another 35 years. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Saw the news article about Golden Bite's expansion. Proud of you, Hermano. Grandpa was right. You were always better at this than me." I smiled and typed back, "You were right about one thing, though. I wasn't corporate material. Turns out that was exactly what we needed." Outside, the neon Golden Bite sign flickered to life against the desert twilight, the same cheerful glow that had welcomed hungry families for over 3 decades. Some things, I realized, were worth preserving exactly as they were, not because change was bad, but because some foundations are too valuable to rebuild. The business Grandpa started with $8,000, and a dream was secure in hands that understood its true value. And that, more than any quarterly profit report, felt like success.